It started with a message, just 7 words that broke the silence of 3 long years. Can you hug me? I stared at my phone, the world pausing around me. The name flashing on the screen was one I had promised myself I'd forgotten, Maya. The girl who once meant everything, the girl who disappeared without a word, taking with her every piece of warmth I had ever known, and now, after 3 years of nothing but unanswered questions, she was asking for a hug. The night was quiet except for the sound of rain tapping against my window. I didn't know what to feel, anger, confusion, or that old, buried tenderness clawing its way back to the surface. My fingers trembled over the keyboard as I typed back a reply that came straight from my heart, raw and unguarded. My arms have always been open for you. The moment I hit send, 1,000 memories came flooding back, her laughter echoing through crowded streets, the way she'd sneak her cold hands into mine in winter, how her eyes always seemed to search for something beyond the stars. I thought she'd found it. I thought she didn't need me anymore. But maybe she never did. I met her the next day at the old park near the lake, our place. The same wooden bench where we'd once planned our future, carving our initials into the bark of the tree beside it like 2 kids who believed love could outlast anything. She was already there, sitting with her hands clasped, eyes red but calm. The years had changed her, she looked older, thinner, like life had taken more from her than it had given. Yet, beneath it all, she was still Maya, the same quiet storm that once turned my whole world upside down. When she looked up and saw me, her lips parted as if to say something, but no words came out. She just stood, hesitated, and whispered again, "Can you hug me?" And before she could even finish, I stepped forward and pulled her close. It wasn't a hug. It was a reunion of broken souls. It was every unsaid apology, every sleepless night, every lonely thought finding its home again. For a long moment, we didn't speak. We just stood there, breathing in the familiar scent of rain and forgiveness. Later, when we sat down, she told me everything. The day she left, she'd found out her mother was dying. She didn't want me to give up my dreams for her pain. She thought disappearing would make it easier for both of us. But the silence that followed didn't heal, it destroyed her. I thought if I stayed away, she said softly, you'd move on and be happy. I looked at her, my voice low. Maya, you were my happiness. Losing you wasn't moving on, it was surviving without meaning. She broke down then, tears streaming down her face as she buried her head in her hands. I wanted to tell her it was okay, that I forgave her, that all those years didn't matter anymore. But instead, I took her hand and squeezed it gently. Let's stop running from what we lost, I said. Let's start again. Not where we left off, but from here. She looked up, her eyes shimmering with the kind of hope I hadn't seen in years. You'd still want me, after everything. I smiled faintly. My arms were never closed, Maya. Not once. Days turned into weeks, and we began to rebuild what time had broken. It wasn't perfect, there were moments of silence, moments when pain resurfaced, when old wounds reopened, but we faced them together. Sometimes, we'd walk by the lake in the evening, watching the sunset paint the sky with colors that reminded me of the past. She'd laugh again, a sound I'd thought I'd never hear. And in those moments, I realized something: love doesn't disappear. It waits. Patiently, quietly, until you're both ready to meet it halfway. But life, as always, had its own plans. One evening, she called me, her voice trembling. I went to the doctor today. My heart sank. I could hear the fear in her tone. What happened? A pause. Then, it's cancer. Stage 2. They say it's treatable, but the rest of her sentence faded into silence. That night, I sat in the hospital waiting room, watching her sleep through the glass. She looked fragile, her hair falling softly against the pillow. And for the first time, I wasn't scared of losing her again. I was scared of not having enough time with her. When she woke, she smiled faintly and whispered, "You don't have to stay." I took her hand. Maya, when you left, I learned what it means to lose someone without a goodbye. I'm not leaving again. Tears filled her eyes, and she whispered, "You're too good for me." No, I said. I'm just yours. Through chemotherapy, sleepless nights, and endless hospital visits, we fought, together. She began to heal, slowly, painfully, but she never stopped smiling. Even on the worst days, she'd whisper, "Can you hug me?" And every time, I'd hold her, tighter than before. Because in that embrace, she wasn't sick, or scared, or broken, she was home. Months later, she rang the bell in the oncology ward, cancer-free. The doctors cheered, nurses smiled, and she turned to me with tears in her eyes. "We did it," she whispered. I smiled. "We always would." Years passed, and we built the life we'd once dreamed of, a small house near the lake, laughter in every corner, and love that no distance or pain could ever break again. Sometimes, when the sun dipped below the horizon, she'd rest her head on my shoulder and whisper the same words that started it all, "Can you hug me?" And I'd smile, wrapping my arms around her, feeling her heartbeat against mine. My arms, I'd whisper back, have always been open for you. If you've ever lost someone you loved, if you've ever waited for a message that never came, or longed for a hug that only existed in your dreams, remember this: sometimes love doesn't return the way you expect. But when it does, it's stronger, braver, and more beautiful than before. So if there's someone you've been meaning to reach out to, maybe tonight's the night to say, "My arms are still open for you." Because sometimes, all it takes to heal a lifetime of pain is just one hug.